I'm going to be talking to you about how to buy a home in Metro Vancouver. I'll be sharing my personal journey, including some of my home buying wins and losses, along with tips and not so common approaches to buying and selling real estate homes and investment real estate. My name is Taylor Biggar, and I'm the chair of the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver. I've been a realtor for over 20 years, and I grew up in real estate in Richmond, British Columbia. In particular, I grew up in Steveston, and that's where my childhood began. I actually grew up in a real estate office, NRS Block Brothers. My dad has been a realtor since 1977, and I was hanging out there as a small child, and I've been involved in real estate ever since. I went to school at BCIT, where I did a business diploma, and after that I looked for a job in 2003 when I didn't have one. And it's just when the real estate market began to pick up, and my dad needed some help. So that's how I started in the business. When I began working with my dad in 2003, I joined several strata councils in the neighborhood I wished to work in. I wanted to volunteer my time and show my passion for my work. I became very passionate about my governance training and my profession, so I ran for election as the director of the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver back in 2012, and I began serving as a leadership role, and I'm the chair of the Real Estate Board for the past 2 years. When I think back to my home ownership journey, I purchased my first property when I was 14 years old with the money I earned from everything from paper routes to washing cars and doing odds and ends. I actually cut lawns for a little while as well. As my dad was in the real estate industry and he worked for several developers, they actually didn't have a landscaper to cut their lawns, and I made a lot of money doing that and bought myself my first lawnmower and made over $25 a lawn, which was a lot of money at the time. That was the early 90s. With that money, I purchased a lot in Kamloops on a golf course, which was a development lot. So it was a bare piece of land, and ended up selling it a couple years later for a few extra dollars, made a little bit of money. I took that money and purchased my first condo at 18 years old in 1998. So instead of buying a car, which all my friends were doing, they were buying cars and clothes and all sorts of things that didn't appreciate in value. I decided to purchase my first piece of real estate. That was obviously the encouragement of my father as well, being in the real estate business. He's still a licensed realtor as well as myself. We work as a partnership in Richmond. And he's the one that really influenced me to take the leaps, and actually he had to sign the contracts because I was underage. I couldn't buy a property at 14. So you may be wondering how I did that. Well, my dad had to purchase those properties for me because I was underage. So those first two properties, that's how we did it, and under his encouragement and mentorship. So I certainly encourage you to find a mentor as well. Well, first of all, I realized in the first 6 months I owned that condo. When I moved in, I realized I could not afford to live in it. And I was going to BCIT, I was going to school. So I decided to move back home, live off the bank of mom and dad, and I rented that condo and paid down my mortgage by living at home. That condo was in Steveston. That was my very first place. I proceeded to buy my second place in 2003 on Gabriel Island. It was a recreation property. I bought that with my mom, and we've owned it ever since, so we've kept that property. The other properties I've purchased, I owned a downtown condo, sort of in the bad part of town, but it was really good value at the time. I bought it straight as a pre-sale from a developer, and believe it or not, it was only $235,000 for a one-bedroom condo in downtown Vancouver. Pretty hard to believe. The other places I've owned several other condominiums. I've since sold most of them, and now I own 3 properties, including my own home. Probably the most rewarding part of owning your own home is the satisfaction that you're actually in the market and you're paying down your mortgage to a point where one day you'll actually own that property and you won't have to pay rent anymore, in this case a mortgage. The most challenging part in buying your first home is actually making the decision to do so, because you're going to have to go out and build up a down payment in order to make a purchase, especially in Vancouver. It's very difficult and it can take quite some time. And you have to delay gratifying yourself with other things that you may want to purchase, like a car, or in our world today, there's so many things you can purchase and you can purchase them instantly. You have to delay that feeling of hey, I want to go out and just be a consumer. Instead, save up money and buy your first property and you'll be well on your way. So some of the recommendations that I have around purchasing your first home and getting into the real estate market in Metro Vancouver, this is not just coming from me as a professional, this is coming from me for recommendations from my friends and family. So the same recommendations I make for them, I make for my clients. That's one of the things, one of the principles about saving for retirement and growing your net worth is doing things early in your life. Then you get the full compounding effect of your money being in the market, or your money being in a home, or your money being invested for a long period of time. So I've always recommended family, friends, even if the parents have to help, it almost makes sense for them to go in as a partner with their child. And I've recommended many times, people have taken that recommendation. I've seen people do very successful things with that. It gives them a stepping stone, gives their children a stepping stone into purchasing upward in a market where they were in a one-bedroom, now they can afford a three-bedroom townhouse. So give them that first leg up. And not that we want to create a dependent sort of situation when it comes to having people dependent on their families in order to help them, but it certainly is a viable alternative to saving up a down payment and actually waiting too long in a market that's rising too fast. One of the best benefits of home ownership is the leverage you can achieve with real estate. Whether it's owning your own home or an investment property, your lender is going to lend you 90% of what you need. All you need to do is put down 10%. In the case of investment, maybe 25%. But there's no other investment that you can purchase where a lender is going to give you that kind of leverage. The next best thing about home ownership is for those who, let's say, are challenged at savings. I'm not one of those people. I'm a strong saver, which is probably why I bought my first property so early. But if you're not a strong saver, if you go out and buy a home, well, guess what? Every month you have to pay your mortgage, and every month that principal is part of your savings plan. You're paying down that little bit every month, and you're going to be building up some equity. And that goes on to the next point about the benefits of home ownership. It's a giant equity builder. It's your wealth builder. In fact, most of the companies, most of the people in the world that have a large amount of wealth have a substantial amount of that wealth in real estate. And that equity builder comes from two things: the growth and appreciation of the investment or the home over time, as well as the fact that you are paying down your mortgage. So that equity is growing in two ways. Another benefit of home ownership is the short-term pain of buying a home and making those payments can seem rather daunting, especially in Metro Vancouver and places that are expensive. However, the longer-term security, when you retire, if you don't own your own home, all of a sudden you've got a rent payment for the rest of your life until you're not here anymore. Well, that's security in retirement. So I always felt like real estate was, as soon as you pay it off, you don't have a mortgage payment anymore. You may have other payments, you may have maintenance, you may have things like that, but all of a sudden one of the largest expenditures people have in their daily lives is no longer there when you're retired. I already talked in a previous chapter about delayed gratification in order to purchase your first home. I think it's a critical component, especially in today's market and today's pricing in Metro Vancouver, that in order to get into your first home, you have to delay some gratification on some other things, some consumer items like vehicles and cars and going out. If you can do that, you can achieve buying a home pretty much anywhere. I like to also talk about the power of compounding. So it's a mathematical principle of compounding. When you talk about interest, whether you talk about interest rate growth or real estate growth, that power of compounding as a percentage grows over time. So every year that your place is growing 3%, you can expect by mathematical laws that every 20 to 30 years, your property is going to double in value. Now that's an equity builder as well. We talked a little bit about that earlier. The thing about owning your own home and selling your own home, any capital gains that you're going to be earning, they are tax-free earnings, at least right now. That may change. There's no laws in place that allow you to make you pay capital gains on your principal residence, but right now, those are tax-free earnings. That's a really giant wealth builder for most Canadians. I've worked with literally thousands of homeowners over the years, homeowners and investment property owners. Now, when I look back and I see some of those examples out there and how people have built net worth and built their built their life around their principal residence being their primary investment, I have to say I've never seen anybody outperform owning a piece of real estate over any other investment that they've made. That is their primary wealth builder. That's their primary part of their net worth. I think back to some of the younger couples I've helped over the years. You know, some people who are, they start off renting like everybody else, or even they start with, living with their parents. That's how I started. I lived with my parents until I was 27, actually. And that was part of, in a previous chapter I mentioned that I lived at home in order to build my wealth and pay down my mortgage because, frankly, I couldn't afford to do it. I was at school at the time, and I didn't make enough money to make a mortgage payment. So I lived with my parents till I was later in life, which was 27, which is kind of late for some people. But you know what? I liked living with my parents. I didn't have a problem with that. A lot of people can't do that. But nonetheless, I could. So, but I've seen lots of people stay at home a little longer. It's part of the delayed gratification. Don't go out into the world, save up some money. And I've actually helped a fair number of young people while living at home do what I did, which was buy your first investment property. You get yourself into the real estate market, and in the meantime, someone else is paying your mortgage. So when we look at Metro Vancouver, like any metro area, any city, almost across the world, 30% of people will always rent. There will always be a renter. If you have an investment property and you want to move into that property later and you can't quite do it yet, perhaps you want to wait a little bit. Go and form a down payment, buy your investment property, maybe live at home a little longer, and then move in later. But at least you're in the real estate market and it's going up with you. The prices are going up with you, and so is your net worth. Now that I'm 43 and looking back in time, and yes, I did start investing in real estate early. It's never too late to start investing in real estate. I look back, and if I was to tell myself in my younger years what I should do more of, and I would absolutely tell myself to take more risks. And I'm not extraordinary. Anyone could do what I did. This is nothing that you can't do yourself. So invest early, take risks. Most younger people today need to go to the bank of mom and dad, their parents, maybe even their friends. You might have a rich uncle or something. But yeah, that's a great way to get started, get your down payment going. You can always pay them back later. One of the thoughts I had in getting to one of my very first condos that I owned and lived in, I actually borrowed from my friend who happened to be my dentist. And what I did was I borrowed the down payment because I didn't have any cash at the time. I had just started in real estate. What I did was I borrowed the down payment from him. And what I did was I was banking. This is a little riskier, but like I said, take risks. I was banking on the fact the value of the property would go up over the next year, and I could refinance and pay him back for the money he lent me, and just have a conventional mortgage with a lender. So I did that, and that was the third condo I bought, and that was where I lived. I lived there for 5 years. Another thing I'd recommend is always be curious, especially these days. I mean, there's so many different ways to invest in real estate now, far more than when I started. There's different business models out there that you can get into the market. So even if you don't have a huge down payment to go and actually buy your first property on your own, there's different investment models like REITs, real estate investment trusts. And basically, it's a group of people getting together to purchase property. Basically, like you basically are buying shares in a trust that goes out and pools those people's money together because they don't have the money to invest themselves. And when they pool that money together, they go out and purchase properties, and you're part of that. So you own a small portion of those properties. As far as new tech goes, there's a lot of newer technologies, newer avenues for, it's more geared towards younger people who would love to get into the real estate market, but they just can't. That down payment is out of reach for so many of them. But there are micro investing tech companies whereby you can actually go and purchase as little as $1 of a piece of property. Now, one would say, well, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to buy even $1,000 worth of a piece of property? Well, if you've got the real estate market going up in the past couple of years, we've seen the real estate increase by anywhere from 20 to 40% around the province. And in Metro Vancouver, probably 25%. Well, as soon as you get invested in even a piece of a property through some of these new technology apps, you can actually join part of that appreciation in terms of the prices going up in real estate. So if it went up 25%, well, guess what? You just earned 25% on the $1,000 you put into a piece of property. So now you're part of the real estate market without having to have those big down payments and those large lump sums of cash to get in. Another thing that I have done personally, I've not done a lot of it, but you can have partnerships like limited liability partnerships. And that's where you do have a little bit of money, but you don't have enough to purchase your own property. But what you'll do is you put in $25,000 or $50,000 into a greater pool, and a general partner manages the project. And it is typically for developments when people are building buildings and looking for investors. And you can earn really substantial returns doing that as well, investing in limited liability partnerships. I want to go back, and if I was to say to myself in my younger days, what are some of the things that I would do? I mean, we've all made lots of mistakes, and that's actually how we learn. We learn more through mistakes than through successes. One of the things I did too much of in my younger years, and I've since pared that back, is don't sell your properties. Unless you're going to go and reinvest that money, don't sell your properties. A lot of people, including myself, have tried to time real estate markets, and it's kind of folly. If you do get it right, it's probably half through great research and half through fluke. So I wouldn't bother trying to time real estate markets. I'd recommend don't sell any real estate if you can help it. Keep it and hold on to it in your portfolio as long as you can. It could become part of your retirement portfolio, and you'll be getting cash flow for years to come. If I was to go back and look at some of the mistakes I made in real estate, some of the mistakes I made was selling. I was selling my properties too soon. I was always trying to, grass is always greener. Maybe there's a better investment. Maybe there's a better home. But at the end of the day, if I had kept all the properties I had owned, I'd be a much wealthier person than I am today. Not to say that you can't be wealthy by buying and selling, but my point is, if you can keep the properties and create yourself a really nice portfolio, then you should probably do that and keep that portfolio growing. Your net worth could be growing. And that could be your entire retirement. You could have multiple properties with tenants paying you an income. So one of the things I can think back to, one of the times I've regretted selling a property, it was a property I purchased in downtown Vancouver. It was a one bedroom for $235,000, if you can believe that. And it wasn't that long ago. That was 10 years ago. I bought it as a pre-sale. It was a one bedroom. It wasn't in the best part of town, but you know what? That part of town was gentrifying. And I decided, oh, you know what? I'm really smart. I'm smarter than the markets. I know I'm going to time this right. And I sold that property. And I made a whopping $40,000 on that property. And I thought I was getting out, successfully. What ended up proceeding to happen is interest rates dropped over the next 2 years. And that property subsequently resold for $450,000 within 18 months. So never try to time the markets. I think you should always look at your real estate investing as a long-term perspective. The flipping thing is a real expert's game. And if you're just getting into the real estate market because you're watching this video, then I highly recommend keeping it simple. One of the things I always recommend in purchasing properties, buy unique properties. This provides you with a competitive advantage when you go to sell these properties, or when it comes to appreciation. Those properties that are unique and rare, look for rarity. Look for properties that are like, for example, if it's a condo, something top floor or a corner or has a view, something that has a really great lot, if it's a detached property. But buy unique properties, because those will go up as far as appreciation. Those will go up the most, and you'll have the best chance of selling them if you ever need to. There's an old adage in real estate: buy up in down markets. Now that's something that I've followed myself. If you're looking to, move up in a home, your home, obviously you outgrow it. You have a family, you want to move to a house or a townhome from a condo. Everyone wants to sell their home when it's worth a lot of money and move up. In fact, what history has shown is you want to buy up in a down market. Overall, yes, your property is not worth as much. You're not setting record-setting prices for your condo. But what I would recommend is doing that, because when you go to purchase the next property, which is upsizing, because you're going into buying a house or a townhome, that property is also down. So your overall mortgage, your overall principal and what you're borrowing is less. So it's often better to buy up in down markets. In a previous chapter, I talked about how you build equity. And really, there's two ways to do that. There's paying down your mortgage, building equity that way, and watching the real estate increase in value, which inevitably it does, especially in the longer term. over a 10-year horizon, real estate is always increasing in value. And those are the two ways you should be building your equity. If you're not in the real estate market, you're not really utilizing probably the best way to grow your personal net worth. One of the principles I learned a long time ago, it took me a while to figure it out, was building an advisory team. So whether it comes to investing in real estate or purchasing your own home, or just in general, your investments in your future, I would highly advise finding a mentor and finding an advisory team. You're going to need a group of people to help you achieve your goals and maximize those goals. One of those people is a realtor like myself, and they'll help guide you through the purchasing or selling process when you're selling your home. And they add a lot of value there. Other team members might include a lender or mortgage broker. So forming with someone you trust, perhaps your realtor can be an orchestrator of all of these people, but perhaps you have someone you trust already. A lender or mortgage broker is someone that you should have in your pocket as well. They will definitely help advise you with one of the more important aspects of real estate, which is the financing of it. Your insurer is another one. I've had the same insurance broker since I was probably 18 years old. I was a teenager. He happened to be down the street, and he formed a relationship with our family because he was involved in our community. But that insurer has insured everything from my vehicles to my life insurance to my real estate throughout my life. So find yourself a great insurer. They can advise you on different properties and what insurance looks like for those. Those people are insuring you against the risks of loss for those properties. Another person I highly advise getting in touch with or having one helping you is an accountant. An accountant is someone who's going to reduce the amount of tax liability you have. And taxes are a huge wealth detractor. So if you can minimize the amount of taxes you pay, that's just more dollars that you can put into real estate, more dollars that you can invest into your financial future. If you happen to be the owner of an investment property, a property manager, especially if you're living abroad, and let's say you own a property outside of Metro Vancouver and you still live here, well, there's lots of other investment opportunities outside of the Lower Mainland. You're probably going to need a property manager to help with that property because you can't be there all the time. You are an absentee landlord. I would highly recommend doing a property manager. They charge in the realm of 10% of the rent per month, but they're well worth their weight in gold because they will reduce risks. They will help keep that property with the tenant in there as well. So those are great people to have as well in your team. Most people find their team members, when I say their team members, your mortgage broker, your insurer, your accountant, your property manager, a lot of them start from their family. A lot of our families, if you're fortunate enough, you have some referrals when it comes to those types of people, especially an accountant or a mortgage broker or lender. Another critical member of your team is going to be your lawyer. And when I say lawyer, I mean notary public as well. These people will help you when you find a property you want to purchase. They'll help convey that property and make it yours and go through the closing process in order to allow that to happen. So they're sort of doing the operations behind you developing your portfolio in real estate, whether it's your own personal home or an investment property. When it comes to finding your team members, as I mentioned earlier in this chapter, I said perhaps your realtor has a team. A really good realtor will have this team of people that they work with, and they can refer you to these people. That's just one way to find your team. A lot of people have a family team already, so their parents have a mortgage broker or a lawyer, an accountant, or an insurer that they already use. So if your family trusts them and they've been with your family for many years, that's probably a great person to look to. In a previous chapter, I spoke about having a team of advisors to help you through the process of owning a home or purchasing a piece of real estate. And one of those critical people is going to be working with a realtor. Realtors have fundamental duties they owe to you. It's a standard of duty and care. So they owe fiduciary duties to you, which is a duty of loyalty. So they always have to act in your best interests. They have to avoid conflicts of interest whereby they have to disclose at any point if they are in a position where they're going to make personal gains that are not already disclosed to you. They have a duty of confidentiality to protect your negotiating position at all times. So they won't be discussing some of the benefits or merits of your offer, or even sometimes you're selling and it's not a good situation. They have to maintain the highest level of confidentiality in order to maintain and keep your position. That's something they can advise you on as well. What most people don't know is that realtors are actually covered by errors and omissions insurance. And what that does is it actually covers you in the event of a loss that you've incurred due to misrepresentation or an error that a licensee has made or a realtor has made. I do highly recommend hiring a local realtor. It's become quite common in the Metro Vancouver area to look for, I know a realtor, and they just seem to work abroad around Metro Vancouver. It's a very, very huge place. We've got 2.5 million people live here now. We've got tens of thousands of properties, and there's no way one realtor can be an expert in the entire Metro Vancouver. I do still recommend that you hire a local realtor that can help you navigate individual properties, individual bylaws and buildings, stigmatized properties that a realtor from out of area may not know about. A realtor will also help you narrow your search. There's no sense in going out looking at 100 properties and trying to find your favorite property. Some people do that. Some people go to open houses and they go shopping for properties, not to really buy them, but because everybody loves real estate. However, when you're looking to purchase your property, you probably want to narrow your search. You don't need to go see 100 properties. A good realtor will actually narrow down your property search and save you time. And we all know saving you time is saving you money. You're probably gonna purchase your home sooner, and especially in a market that's rising. If you purchase your home sooner, it'll cost less money. There's some distinct advantages to having a local realtor, and one of those is identifying properties that you probably don't want to purchase. There's a lot of properties out there that are not in good condition. There's a lot of properties that are not suitable for you, and you're going to be spending your time looking at things that don't meet your requirements. If you eventually want to buy your first property, but you may want to rent it, perhaps there's certain restrictions in that particular building that are never going to allow you to rent it, so you'd be wasting your time looking at those types of properties. Your realtor is going to help you navigate, especially if they're local. They're going to know these things. They're going to know which buildings are non-smoking, which buildings are smoking, which buildings have had water ingress issues, which is a huge cost. If you ever have to pay a fee when it comes to what we used to call leaky condos, some people are paying in the hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to repair their condos. And that's not the kind of experience you probably want to have when you're purchasing your first, or any time, not just your first property, but any time. You do not want to have an experience like that if you can avoid it. Local realtors will help you do that. The other thing that makes a realtor advantageous to a purchaser and a seller, they have access to the latest tools. So that means the latest tools for finding properties, pinpointing criteria that are really particular to you. Whether, for example, let's say it was an age restriction. You were looking for a building that only allows 55 plus. You don't want any kids, you don't want to live with any kids, and you meet those age criteria. Another common criteria is school searches. So a local realtor will help you narrow your search to the best schools in the area, and they'll use the latest tools in order to do that. Try and find yourself a really experienced realtor. Realtors can be in business for a long time but not sell many properties. So I'm not talking about an old realtor, I'm talking about a realtor who has a lot of experience. They've done a lot of transactions, or a fair number of transactions. Those realtors are on top of their game. They're going to be doing this day in, day out. They live the life. They're going to be the most experienced at negotiating for you. They're going to be the most experienced at what's going on and what pricing is going on in neighborhoods that you're looking at. They're also going to know the latest, everything from restaurants to what the school rankings are in the areas that you're hoping to be in. The other thing that is probably the most important thing about working with a realtor is their reputation. When you're on the other side of I'm a realtor myself, I've been a realtor for 20 years. When you're on the other side of the table with a realtor who has a really good reputation, you understand how they do business and they have integrity. So you want to find a realtor that has great reputation, because that's going to help you when you go to purchase your home. They're going to be representing your side of the table, and the other realtor is going to want to work with that realtor, and so therefore they're going to want to work with you to find your home. Another kind of a myth about realtors is that they charge fees to everybody. In reality, it's always been the case since I've been a realtor that the fees are paid for by the seller. So if you're looking to buy your first property, well, you don't have to pay your realtor anything. So you're getting all these advantages of having one without really paying any fees. So I highly recommend you seek a realtor if you're a buyer and looking for look for a buyer's agent. Look for someone who specializes in that. They're going to really help you, and they're not going to cost you any money. One day, you're going to want to list and sell a property. There's a lot of power in marketing today. There's so many different ways to market and sell a property. And a realtor is going to know what those most effective ways are. When it comes to selling a property, you're going to want to actually basically you have to make your property into a product. So the way we do that in the real estate marketing industry is we actually stage properties. So I know for my clients, what I do is I provide staging services where we have a consultant come in and help them make their property into a product, make it look its best possible. The idea is to make it look like some of those show homes that you go into when you're going to look at brand new homes. So that's kind of the idea around staging. And that's going to provide a real wow factor when buyers come into your home and they want to, and you're competing against other homes, they're going to be wanting your home. When it comes to photographs, I don't know about you, but when I look at things, whether it be cars or products on Amazon, the photographs are really, really critical. And obviously that goes without saying for real estate. Photographs are absolutely critical. Professional photography is a must. If you're a realtor or someone who's marketing your home is not using professional photography, you probably want to find someone else. Those people are also probably using the latest tools as well. There's lots of great tools, and when I say tools, I mean technological avenues. You should be using Instagram, you should be using Facebook, you should be using social media to market properties as well. You can reach so many more people nowadays. It's so much easier than it ever has been. And your realtor should be marketing your property using those latest tools. An often overlooked part of selling and marketing a property is the fee structure that if you're a seller and you're offering out there in the marketplace. So there's certain fee structures that realtors may be asking if they're working for a buyer's agent. And if you have a different fee structure or you have a better fee structure, you may be actually enticing and improving your chances of doing better when it comes to selling your house. You may actually get more money by let's say you use a different fee structure and it may be a bonus structure whereby you're encouraging realtors to come and show your property first. Those kinds of structures can work in different markets. Is it really market dependent? Depends on the level of inventory out there. If there's a lot of competition and there's 10 of your home out there on the market right now, well, perhaps you want to look at fee structures as a way to entice, a way to encourage other realtors to stand out and bring buyers to your property. The other thing that's often not discussed is who's your target audience. So like anything, whether it be this video or any kind of, when you're trying to convey a message, who's your audience? Well, who's your audience when you're selling your home? It's really important to know who that target market is. You could be spending, if you're not targeting those people, you could be spending a lot of time, energy, and effort and maybe not selling your home because you're not focusing on the right people. For example, if you're not focusing on downsizers, if it's a penthouse condo, for example. Most penthouse condos, when it comes to certain locales, they are being sold to I call them last-time home buyers. Those are the people that are buying their last property before they go to the last place they go. So targeting that audience is very critical and making sure that you are staging your home, photographing your home in a way that really, really hits those people. Finding the right social media that hits those people. Some of your audience won't be on social media, so you have to also do some of the more conventional aspects of marketing. There's a couple really critical factors in selling your home that people pay too little attention to. So everyone thinks, oh, great photographs are going to sell my home. Being on social media is going to sell my home. But at the end of the day, there's two critical factors in selling your home that if you don't have right, you probably are going to face an uphill battle and may not sell it. One of those things is pricing. It doesn't matter how much money your realtor spends, or for my clients, it doesn't matter how much money I spend on marketing their home, I can't sell their home if they're mispriced. If they're severely overpriced, then what's going to happen is that home is going to sit on the market. Information is so available nowadays. Buyers are very, very savvy. They're very market. The information they have in the market is very robust. They have all the information that every one of us has. So they know what the last property sold for. If you are out to lunch with your price, you need to investigate that further and reprice your property in a way that'll help it sell. If you're not interested in selling, then you can leave the price where it is. Another aspect of selling your home, it's fee structures. When I talk about fee structures, I'm talking about the fee structure around compensating realtors. So it sounds self-serving. I am a realtor. I've been one for 20 years, but I've used this fee structure in many, many, many times in order to entice buyers, in order to help my seller achieve their goals. And that could be anything from a bonus fee structure. We've often done that. So when you look at the overall picture, we don't know exactly what's going to sell your home. So we have to do everything we can. One of the ways we do that is to get people in the door. How do you entice human beings? You incentivize them. How do you incentivize a realtor? The same as any other human being. You incentivize them. You can do bonus structures, you can do higher commission structures in order to get more realtors through the door, because they're all going to bring their buyers. They're going to want to earn a little bit more money. We all would want to do that. So you're just incentivizing the human condition, and you're actually selling your home, and you're creating better chances of you selling and for more money. So that's an often overlooked aspect to selling your home. There are certain market conditions that exist whereby fee structures are really critical. When there's a lot of competition, or you have a not so unique property, because let's face it, there's lots of second floor condos that are interchangeable with each other, and you're trying to make your property unique. Well, you can't quite do that, so you have to do that in some other way. Maybe you set yourself apart by having a bonus structure on the fees for the realtor that's going to sell your home. That doesn't go to your listing agent, that goes to the buyer's agent. So perhaps if you want to, if you're in a market where you have a property that's not so unique, or there's a lot of properties on the market, there's a lot of inventory, one way to set yourself apart, and guess what, and be on every realtor's showing list. They only have time to show so many properties in a given day. And guess what, if yours is always on the list because you have the best fee structure, you're going to have a better chance of selling it, and probably for more money. I can't emphasize staging enough. Staging is really, really critical. When you have the great photographs, you've got the place staged, you get people in the door with the photographs. Then when they arrive into the showing, the staging is what really hooks them. The best thing you can do is, I've seen this hundreds of times before, when you've got, for example, you've got a couple coming into a property, and the wife grabs the husband's arm, or vice versa, or whatever. There's that initial reaction. We all have walked into a show home, or a brand new property, or even a well-staged resale property, whereby you just know it's yours. This is the one you want. So it's critical to have staging, get people in the door with the photographs, but have the staging in order to entice them and get them hooked when they get in the door. In details, there is trust. When someone walks into your home and you're showing it for sale, if your home is messy and it's untidy and it's unkempt, basically you're decreasing your chances. And I think that goes without saying. But what it also does that people don't think about is it's creating a mistrust of how you've maintained your home. If you have a very well maintained, if you have a very clean home, a comparable property that someone's looking at, and they go into there and they have this built-in trust that because it's so clean, because it's so tidy, well, that's probably how you keep your home in general. You probably maintain the mechanical aspects of your property, the electrical, all the heating systems. People start to build trust when your home is very clean. And that's probably the easiest thing any seller can do, is keep their property extremely tidy, extremely clean for showings. And you'd be surprised how many places I show buyers out there where you just want to walk back out the door or change your socks. Something very topical that comes to purchasing your next home in this Metro Vancouver market is, we all know there's an inventory shortage. So you need to have someone on your side that's going to help you make an offer on the next property that you want to live in or invest in, that's going to be very competitive when it comes to negotiate against other buyers. Most of the deals that I've done in the years of 2020 and 2021, most of them have faced a multiple offer scenario whereby there's more than one buyer that's interested in purchasing. So you want to have someone on your side that is a strong, strong negotiator. Now, negotiating is a bit art and is a bit science. And it's also a bit of circumstances as well. So obviously when you're negotiating, you don't want to go into a property that you don't have the room to purchase. So have a goal in mind about what your strategy is around pricing and how much you can afford. Have your financing in place. So one of the key things to have in really, really low inventory markets where you're competing with other buyers, your financing should be, everything should be neat and tidy, your T's crossed and your I's dotted well before you're writing that offer. This can be facilitated by your realtor or mortgage broker. Both of them have the skills and experience to increase your chances of getting that property. Another thing that is discussed and often we see condition-free offers or offers with conditions, and basically what we're trying to do when we're representing you as the buyer and trying to win you the home, we're trying to make the conditions as attractive as possible to the seller, because we're really trying to sell the seller on taking your offer and not someone else's. So conditions, and when I say conditions, I mean subjects is probably the more commonly used term in the industry. That subject to, those are conditions under which you won't purchase the property. So common conditions are, well, we want to have a week to get our financing, or we want to have a few days to hire an inspector. We want to have a few days to review strata documents or review insurance policies. Those kinds of things. The fewer conditions, or at least making your conditions as attractive as possible, will give you your best chance of being the winner when it comes to competing with other buyers. When it comes to doing an inspection, your advisor will help you with that, because not all properties need an inspection. I usually recommend an inspection depending on the buyer, depending on their sophistication level of the buyer. If you've already owned 20 properties, you probably don't need an inspection on a one-bedroom condo. So it all depends. When it comes to a house. When it comes to a house, you probably do want to always do an inspection. There is no supporting documentation to give you any indication of how that owner has maintained the home, other than what the owner has told you and what you can see on the surface. So always recommend hiring an inspection for a detached property, meaning a house. When it comes to strata documentation, your realtor, or at least some realtors, will have the latest tools. In fact, I use some AI software whereby it'll save you time. It'll give you the Coles Notes version of any strata documentation that you have. We receive the documentation, the AI software will read it and spit out a summary to you, so that you can help you get into the layman's Coles Notes version of what the condition of the strata is that you're buying in. So going back to I would always seek expert help when it comes to most of these things. You can also hire a lawyer and accountant to go over financials for you and whatnot. I also highly recommend speaking to an insurance broker. I don't know that many realtors would do this, but I would certainly recommend that if you have an insurance broker, or if your realtor has one, speak to an insurance broker about what your insurance looks like over the future of your home. When you purchase, a lot of people don't look to their insurance until they've actually closed on the house. They're in the process of moving their stuff in already. Oh yes, we should probably get our insurance in order. Well, it might be a bit too late. You might find that there are some hiccups in the insurance, or some hiccups in the property you've purchased, that make it uninsurable or very expensive to insure. A lot of people don't do the extra steps in due diligence to check that out. In a previous chapter, I talked about seeking out expert help, hiring your team. Some of your team members will be lawyers, some of your team members will be accountants. So whenever you hit a hurdle when it comes to purchasing your home, what you want to do is seek expert help when you don't have the answers. And the other experts, like your realtor, when they're out of their element and they're out of their expertise, they will suggest, and they should suggest, that you seek other expert help. Whether that be an insurance broker, an inspector, an accountant, a lawyer. Those are all things that you should be asking yourself. Does my expert require the expertise of someone else in order to make me feel comfortable with this transaction?